He's passed out drunk in the middle of his house with no clothes on. And that's the setting for what follows. And so we see this text, it goes on, it says he drinks the wine, he becomes drunk, but it doesn't stop there. It says that he lay uncovered in his tent, that he uncovered himself, basically that he is naked in the middle of his living room. He's passed out drunk in the middle of his house with no clothes on. And that's the setting for what follows. So we have this reality, this truth. Sin is still present. Even the man that that we're told is the most righteous man on the earth, the very first story we read about him after the covenant, that I'm never going to flood the earth again, gets drunk, passes out naked in his living room. But there's a deeper truth present here. Again, sin is still present, but it also shows us how that sin, how our sins, the sins that we commit, affect other people. And that's really kind of the deeper point here. There's the overarching reality that we are all sinful, that I am sinful by nature and by choice. That not only do I commit sins, but I have a sinful nature. Again, desperately wicked is my heart. But now we're being shown, maybe for the first time, like how that sin is directly affecting the people around us. So Noah's sin is drunkenness and losing self-control, but it leads directly to the sin of his son Ham. And this is what most of the text focuses on. We have this situation where Noah, again, passed out, drunk, naked in his living room, and his son walks in on him. Now, some have argued that Ham's sin here is simply seeing his father naked. And they'll make the argument that to uncover your father's nakedness is a sin, and that is a sin in Leviticus. But that's not what's going on here. Ham doesn't walk in and make his father be naked. So what is Ham's sin? His sin is what he does after that point. So he walks in, he finds his dad naked, and then he does something afterward, or chooses not to, depending on how we want to look at this. He walks out and he goes and gossips about it. He goes to his brother and goes to his brothers and starts to make fun of his father. He goes, "Hey guys, y'all know Dad's in there butt naked? That's the funniest thing I've ever seen." And this is something that we read all over the place. John Gill, again, Baptist commentator, he says he looked with pleasure and delight on his father's nakedness. That's just weird. Josephus, who is a Jewish historian around the turn of the millennium or the turn of the calendar, he says when his youngest son saw him, he laughed and showed him to his brethren, but they covered their father's nakedness. John Calvin, commenting on it, he says, Ham, by reproachfully laughing at his father, betrays his own depraved and malignant disposition. Ham alone eagerly seized the occasion of ridiculing and inviting against his father, just as perverse men are wont to do at each occasion of offense in others, which may serve as pretext for indulgence in sin. Basically, Calvin is saying is that Ham gave into that impulse that we all have to revel in somebody else's downfall. It's kind of the thing where somebody trips and falls and you laugh at them. Not always sinful, but it's that impulse in every situation to see somebody fail, and rather than helping it, rather trying to fix the situation, we just point and laugh. Sometimes it's okay to laugh, but if your brother trips and falls, you need to help him up. And that's what Ham fails to do. Rather than that, he's reproaching his father. Matthew Henry kind of goes a little bit further. He says, to see it accidentally and involuntarily would not have been a crime. So he's saying just having seen Noah naked would not have been the issue. But one, he pleased himself with the sight. Two, he told his brothers without, that is in the streets or in the world, and in a scornful, deriding manner, that his father might seem vile to them. This is the issue. Not that Ham sees his father naked. That's disturbing enough for most of us, right? I don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. The problem is what Ham chooses to do after the fact. And then we also need to, again, recognize the reality that this situation exists because of Noah's lack of self-control. Because Noah sins by giving in to drunkenness and the loss of self-control. And that sin affects other people around him. And then Ham comes in, and his situation is ripe, and then rather than choosing to do what his brothers ended up doing, which is cover his father, right? Because Ham could have totally have done that. He could have walked in there, taken his shirt off, covered his dad, gone outside and said, "Hey guys, don't go in there, Dad's naked." But that's pretty clearly not what happens. I think it's interesting that there's other people that go take this a little bit further, talking about Ham's sin. Cyril of Alexander goes on, he says that this is a type of sexual assault. And I think that is very prophetic of him because of the way that we treat a situation like this in our world today. Because we would basically label it sexual assault. Because the modern equivalent is you walk into your house, walk into a friend's house, they're naked on the floor, you take pictures of it and send it to all your friends. Which would definitely be considered sexual assault in our day. And so we have to understand here how horrible Ham's sin is, but also the way these two things are interconnected. Parents, spouses, friends, your sin affects the people around you. I think one of the clearest examples of this in our culture and the widespread effect that it has on our society and our culture is how divorce affects children. The most common effects on children are confusion, fear of abandonment, anger, risky behavior, and identity struggles. When that family structure is broken, when the divorce comes in, that sin of divorce, which again, not all divorce is sinful, but divorce always comes from sin. When that happens, it doesn't just affect the two people involved, it affects everyone around them. When I fall into sin, it affects my wife and my children. It's not just me. There is no such thing as a victimless sin. And this story of Noah and his son highlights something that we already know. We already understand that reality that when I do dumb things, when I sin, it hurts the people around me. Thank you for watching this clip from Weaver Baptist Church. We hope this message has encouraged you in your faith. We want to remind you that these shortened clips are meant to supplement your spiritual growth, not replace the gathering with the local church body. As Hebrews 10:25 urges us, let us not neglect meeting together to encourage one another. We'd love for you to join us in person at Weaver Baptist Church for the full experience of worship, fellowship, and community. Check our website for service times and directions. If you can't make it, we encourage you to connect with a Bible-believing church in your area. For the complete sermon and more messages, visit our other YouTube channel where the full sermon videos are available. May God bless you, and we hope to see you soon.